I'm Emery, 34, and I thought I'd built a perfect life with my husband, Mark. For 7 years, I poured my heart into being a loving wife and stepmom to his son, Jake. I decorated our home, cheered at every football game, and worked hard to create the family we deserved. But one night, everything fell apart when Mark believed Jake's vicious lies over the truth he knew deep down. 3 weeks later, he called, expecting me to apologize. Instead, I handed him divorce papers. Before I share how I went from devoted wife to filing for divorce in just 3 weeks, tell me where you're watching from. If someone's ever believed lies about you, hit that subscribe button. I met Mark 6 years ago at a marketing conference in Chicago. I was speaking on digital strategy, and he stood out in the crowd with his sharp questions. His confidence and warm, crinkly-eyed smile drew me in. After my talk, he handed me his business card, complimenting my work. That led to coffee, then dinner, and soon a romance that swept me away. Mark was divorced and had an 11-year-old son, Jake. I knew dating a single dad meant embracing his kid, and I was excited to be a positive part of Jake's life. Mark took his time introducing us, wanting Jake to feel okay with his dad's new relationship. Our first meeting was at Jake's favorite pizza spot. I was so nervous I changed outfits 3 times, finally picking jeans and a blue sweater Mark said made my eyes pop. Jake was shy, giving one-word answers and glancing at his dad for comfort. 6 months later, Mark proposed during a Lake Michigan getaway. Our wedding was stunning, with 100 guests, and Jake his best man. His sweet speech about welcoming me into the family brought tears to my eyes, filling me with hope. Moving into Mark's house took some adjusting. It was nice but felt cold, missing a personal touch. With Mark's blessing, I redecorated, making it a warm home for all of us. I left Jake's room alone, respecting his space, only offering help if he asked. Those early days buzzed with optimism. I knew blending a family wouldn't be easy, but I was all in. Jake was hitting his teens, and I expected some pushback against a new authority figure. I worked hard to connect with him without trying to replace his mom, who lived out of state and saw him only during summers and holidays. I went to Jake's football games, shouting from the stands and learning the rules of a sport I'd never cared about before. I cooked his favorite dishes, keeping track of what he liked. When algebra tripped him up, I sat with him at the kitchen table, using my skills to help him through it. Sometimes, I felt we were getting somewhere, family movie nights when Jake actually watched without his phone, a random Saturday when he asked for my help on a marketing school project, the Christmas morning he lit up over the gaming laptop I'd carefully chosen for him. Mark saw my efforts and appreciated them. After Jake went to bed, he'd hug me, thanking me for my patience with his son. Those moments meant the world, proof my hard work mattered. My coworker Sophia, a stepmom herself, became my confidant. Over lunch, she shared tips on bonding with a stepkid who might see me as an outsider. She warned me about teenage manipulation, but I brushed it off, believing Jake and I were building something real. Our home became my pride and joy. I revamped the living room with cozy sectionals and soft lighting to bring us together. The kitchen, my happy place, was stocked with gadgets and always smelled of fresh meals. I turned the plain backyard into a patio perfect for summer barbecues with friends and family. Mark's parents, Barbara and Richard, welcomed me warmly at first. Barbara loved seeing Mark happy again, and Richard valued the stable home I created for Jake. Family gatherings were pleasant, if a bit stiff, and I felt like I was earning my spot in their world. Over time, I started dreaming of growing our family. Mark and I talked about having a child together, agreeing to wait until Jake was older and our family felt solid. I pictured a little sibling for Jake, hoping it would strengthen our bond. Sometimes, Jake gave me cold looks when Mark wasn't around or made snide remarks. I chalked it up to typical teen mood swings, nothing worth confronting. I told myself these were just small hurdles, that love and patience would win him over. I threw myself into being the perfect wife and stepmom, convinced my care would break through Jake's resistance. Looking back, I was so focused on building that ideal family that I missed the warning signs, small clues that trouble was brewing, ready to erupt into a betrayal that would change everything. Jake's behavior changed so slowly I hardly noticed at first. At 17, starting his junior year, I chalked up his growing distance to typical teenage stuff. But soon, it was hard to ignore. Family dinners, once a must in our home, were now marked by Jake's empty chair and texts about late study sessions or club activities. One night, after he skipped 3 dinners in a row, I made his favorite lasagna to lure him home. When he texted he was staying at a friend's for a project, the rejection stung. Mark just shrugged. "That's high school," he said. "Projects always seem to happen elsewhere." Other worrisome signs popped up. Passing Jake's room, I'd catch him on the phone, his voice dropping to a whisper when he noticed me. Once, I overheard him say, "She's always in my business," followed by an eye roll when he spotted me. Then things started vanishing, a silver bracelet from my dresser, gone. $40 missing from my wallet, though I was sure I'd withdrawn $60. I told Mark, but he brushed it off, saying I must have misplaced them. One Saturday, over coffee on the patio, I tried talking to Mark about Jake's distance. "I'm worried," I said, stirring my cup. "He's never home, and when he is, he barely talks to me." Mark leaned back, sighing. "Emery, he's 17. Teens need space. They don't want to hang with parents." "It's more than that," I pressed. "It feels like he's avoiding me, not you." "You're overthinking it," Mark said, waving it off. I was like that at his age. I dropped it, but the unease lingered, a quiet hum in my daily life. Jake's grades started slipping, too. A school alert showed he was failing chemistry, so I offered to help. I found him in his room, lost in video games, headphones on. "Jake," I said after knocking and getting a grudging okay to enter. "I saw your chemistry grade. I was good at science in school. Want help studying for your next test?" He ripped off his headphones, glaring. "You checked my grades behind my back?" "No, your dad and I get school alerts automatically," I said calmly. "I just want to help." "I don't need your help," he snapped, voice rising. "And I don't need you spying on me to tell my dad." "Jake, I'm not spying. I care about you." "You're not my mom," he cut me off, face red with anger. "Stop acting like you are." His outburst left me reeling, tears stinging as I left his room. I wondered where this anger came from. I told Mark, but he downplayed it. "College apps are stressing him out," he said. "It's not personal." But it felt deeply personal, like he was rejecting everything I'd tried to build with him. Things got worse when I found troubling texts on Jake's phone. He'd left it on the kitchen counter while showering, and it kept buzzing. Worried, I glanced at it and saw messages from a guy named Tyler about a party with alcohol and weed. I was torn. Mark needed to know about Jake's risky behavior, but telling him could ruin what little bond one had with Jake. After thinking it over, I decided to talk to Mark about setting firmer rules for Jake without mentioning the texts, hoping general boundaries would help. That talk went south fast. When I suggested Jake needed more structure, Mark got defensive. "What, you think I'm not raising my son right?" he asked sharply. "No," I said, caught off guard. "I just think teens need clear boundaries, especially with choices that could hurt their future." "What choices?" Mark demanded. "Just teenage stuff," I said vaguely, unsure how Mark would react to the texts I'd seen. I didn't want to spill everything yet. "I've raised Jake for 17 years, Mark snapped, his voice icy. "I know what he needs better than someone who's only been around a fraction of that time." The talk ended with tension thick in the air. As I turned to leave, I caught Jake in the hallway, a smug smirk on his face before he quickly hid it. That fleeting look sent a chill through me, knowing he'd overheard and loved the conflict. Around then, Jake started dating Brittany, who took an instant dislike to me. At dinner, she was warm with Mark but gave me curt replies. Once, I overheard her tell Jake, "How do you stand her being here all the time," when she thought I was gone. I felt more and more uneasy in my own home, like an outsider tiptoeing to avoid Jake's hostility or fights with Mark. The home I'd poured love into decorating no longer felt safe, It was a battleground where I was losing ground. Still, I clung to hope, believing this was just a tough phase we'd get through. I'd invested too much heart and time to quit now. I didn't see how fragile my place in this family really was. My 34th birthday should have been a joyful family night. I'd booked a fancy Italian restaurant weeks ahead, excited for time with Mark and Jake. That morning, I found Mark making my favorite breakfast, French toast with berries, lilies brightening the table. "Happy birthday, beautiful," he said, kissing me softly. "We've got dinner at 7. "Where's Jake?" I asked, noticing he wasn't there. Mark's face shifted. He texted about a study group for a big test tomorrow. He's sorry he can't make breakfast. I hid my disappointment. "He'll be at dinner, right?" "I booked it weeks ago." Mark hesitated, setting down my plate. "Actually, Jake said last night his friend Tyler's group is meeting for a senior project. It's a big deal for his grades." "On my birthday?" I said, hurt creeping in. "We talked about this dinner just last weekend." "I know, he feels bad," Mark said, but I doubted Jake cared. "This project matters for college apps." "You're letting him skip my birthday for a last-minute project?" I asked, appetite gone. "Emery, senior year is huge for his future," Mark said. "I can't make him miss this." I felt invisible, my special day tossed aside for what I suspected was another of Jake's lies. I nodded quietly as Mark apologized, promising to make it up. At dinner, Jake's empty chair mocked my hope that we were a real family. Mark tried to be extra sweet, but the truth was clear: Jake always came first, and I was a distant second. Driving home, I spoke up. "Mark, I feel like an outsider in our family. Today proved it." "That's not fair," he said defensively. "It was just bad timing with his project." "It's not just today," I said, voice shaky. "It's a pattern. Jake shuts me out, and you let him." We argued for hours, Mark defending Jake while I tried to show him the hurtful cycle. We made up with tired apologies, but something had cracked. That fight revealed a deep flaw in our marriage that would only grow. After my birthday, Jake's disrespect got bolder. I noticed Mark looking at me differently, doubt replacing trust in his eyes. Later, I learned Jake was feeding him lies when I wasn't around. "She gets so mad sometimes, Dad," I overheard him say one night, thinking I was still out. "I don't want to stir trouble," he added, stopping when I walked in, sharing a look with Mark that twisted my stomach. The incidents piled up. My work laptop, crucial for presentations, turned up water damaged one day. Jake swore he knew nothing, but it was fine when I left it on my desk that morning. He'd been home alone, supposedly sick. After that, Mark questioned me more about Jake. "He said you yelled at him about laundry yesterday," he mentioned one night, watching me closely. "That's not true," I said, stunned by the lie. "I was in meetings all day. I barely saw him." Mark nodded, but I could see he wasn't fully convinced. He seemed really upset. "Mark, that never happened," I insisted. "Jake's lying to you." His face hardened. "That's a big accusation, Emery. Why would he lie about that?" I had no answer that didn't sound like an attack on Jake, so I backed off, dread knotting my stomach. Our home turned tense, full of silent accusations. I felt uneasy doing simple chores, scared Jake would twist them into something bad to tell Mark. My safe haven was now hostile ground. Sophia noticed my change at lunch. "You look drained," she said, worried. "Everything okay at home?" I broke down, spilling everything to Sophia: Jake's worsening behavior, Mark's growing doubts, and my loneliness in my own home. Sophia's face turned serious as she listened. "Emery, this sounds like deliberate alienation," she said. "Jake's turning Mark against you, and Mark's letting it happen. You need help, maybe family counseling." With Sophia's encouragement, I suggested counseling to Mark that night. I think we could all use a professional to sort out our communication issues, I said carefully. Mark's response was sharp. We don't need an outsider telling us how to be a family. It's just a rough patch. It's more than that, I pushed. I feel like I'm being forced out of my own home. You're being dramatic, he said, brushing me off. Jake's just acting like a typical teen, and you're taking it too personally. His rejection of counseling slammed another door shut, blocking a way to fix things. Then things got worse. I found my home office in disarray, my passport moved, financial papers out of order. Checking my bank account, I saw $500 missing from a recent deposit. Only Mark and I had access to that account, set up for emergencies early in our marriage. I asked Mark about the money. He seemed genuinely confused but had no answers. Maybe you transferred it and forgot, he said. You've been stressed lately. The constant gaslighting made me doubt myself. Was I forgetting things? Was I overreacting to Jake's behavior? These questions ate at me, shaking my confidence and sense of reality. Mark's parents, Barbara and Richard, grew distant during their visits. Barbara, once warm, now mostly talked to Mark and Jake, treating me like a stranger. After a Sunday dinner, I asked Mark if he noticed their change. He shrugged. They're worried about Jake. He told them you've been harsh with him lately. What? I gasped. That's not true. What did he say? Just that you criticize him all the time and make him feel unwelcome, Mark said, repeating Jake's words. They're his grandparents, Emery. They're protective. Learning Jake was spreading lies beyond our home hit me hard. The image I'd built with Mark's family was being torn apart by a teen with a hidden agenda. My isolation deepened as Jake's lies spread. He told friends I didn't want visitors. Mark's colleagues, our social circle, heard subtle lies about my moodiness. My support system was crumbling, leaving me alone with my growing fear. I didn't see it then, but these were steps in Jake's calculated plan, building to a moment that would destroy the life I'd built. I was walking into a trap, blind to the betrayal waiting just ahead. My Seattle business trip was meant to last 3 days, but meetings wrapped early, so I caught an afternoon flight home. I didn't tell Mark, thinking it'd be a fun surprise. Now, I wish I'd texted him. That choice changed everything. The house looked normal when my taxi pulled up at 6 p.m. But loud music blasted from inside, louder than Mark would ever allow. I unlocked the door and found our living room like a teen movie scene. Jake and 10 other kids lounged on our furniture, liquor bottles, some half-empty, on the coffee table. The smell of marijuana filled the air, plastic cups and snack bags scattered, and a dark stain marred the cream rug I'd bought 2 months ago. No one noticed me at first, frozen in shock. Then a girl nudged Jake, whose eyes widened when he saw me. He stumbled up, clearly drunk, as the music blared on. What's happening here? I asked, my voice cutting through the noise. Where's your dad? Jake fumbled with his phone, turning down the music. He's at a work dinner, he slurred. Won't be back till late. I took in the alcohol and drugs, kids drinking in my home. Breathing deeply, I said firmly, everyone who doesn't live here, leave now. The party's over. Grumbling, the teens grabbed their stuff when I shut off the music completely. Jake watched, his face shifting from shock to something darker as his friends left. Once alone, I faced Jake. What were you thinking? Alcohol and drugs with minors? Do you know how serious this is? It's no big deal, he mumbled, swaying. Everyone does it. It's a huge deal, I shot back, grabbing the liquor bottles. This is illegal, Jake. You could get in serious trouble, and look at the damage to our home. Leave it, he snapped, suddenly angry. I'll clean up before Dad's back. He doesn't need to know. I won't lie to your father, I said, still collecting bottles. He needs to know what happened. Then Jake's attitude shifted, becoming cold and calculated. He grabbed his phone, turned away, and called Mark, his voice suddenly shaky and scared. "Dad, come home now. Emery's freaking out. She hit me, Dad. I don't know what to do." I froze, a bottle nearly slipping from my hand. "Jake, that's a total lie," I said, stunned. He ignored me, playing the victim for Mark. "I'm scared. Please come home," he begged before hanging up. "Why would you say that?" I demanded, heart racing as I realized what Jake had done. "Your dad will think I hit you." "That never happened." Jake's eyes locked on mine, cold and calculating. For the first time, I saw the malice behind his actions. This wasn't just teen rebellion, it was a planned attack. "It's your word against mine," he said with a shrug. "And Dad always picks me." I called Mark right away, but it went to voicemail. My desperate texts explaining the truth went unread. The 20 minutes before Mark got home felt endless. I watched Jake stage his lie, messing his hair, rumpling his clothes, splashing water on his face to fake tears. Worst of all, he pressed his arm against the counter, making a red mark that would bruise, crafting fake proof. When Mark stormed in, his face mixed fury and worry. He rushed to Jake, who put on an Oscar-worthy act. "She lost it, Dad," Jake sobbed, showing the mark. "I had a few friends over, and she screamed, threw stuff. When I tried to calm her, she grabbed me and shoved me." "That's not true," I said, voice shaking. "Mark, he had a party with alcohol and drugs. I sent his friends home and was cleaning when he called you with this lie." Mark glanced at the party mess, then at Jake. "You had alcohol here?" I hoped truth would win, but Jake was ready. "Just a couple beers someone brought without me knowing," he said, sounding sorry. I was about to kick them out when Emery came home and flipped. "She's always hated me, Dad," waiting for an excuse. "That's a lie," I pleaded. "Mark, you know me. I'd never hurt Jake. Please believe me." Mark looked torn, but his eyes fixed on Jake's arm, and I saw his choice. "Pack a bag, Emery," he said coldly. "Get out tonight." His words hit like a punch. "Mark, please," I begged. "Jake's manipulating you." "I saw the bruise myself," Mark said, voice rising. "My son's scared of you. Leave until we sort this out." "Where do I go?" I asked, tears breaking through. "Call a friend, get a hotel, I don't care," he snapped. "Just get away from my son." "Mark, this is my home too," I said weakly. "This was my house first," he shot back. "I never thought you'd hurt Jake." "Guess we were both wrong." I glanced at Jake behind Mark, catching a triumphant glint in his eyes before he hit it. I realized a 17-year-old had outplayed me, plotting my exit with chilling precision. With no options, I went upstairs, hands shaking as I packed a bag. Through tears, I called Sophia, who offered her spare room instantly. Coming downstairs with my suitcase was humiliating. Mark stood, arms crossed, watching silently as I grabbed my purse and charger. "I never thought you'd fall for such a blatant lie," I said, meeting his eyes. 7 years, and this is all it takes to forget who I am." "I saw the bruise," Mark said firmly. "It doesn't lie." "Your son does," I replied, voice cracking. "You'll see one day, but it'll be too late." Leaving, I looked back at Jake in the hallway, a smug smirk on his face when Mark wasn't looking. It confirmed his calculated plan to push me out. Driving to Sophia's, I kept calling Mark, but he didn't answer. I sent texts begging him to see the truth, to question why Jake didn't call the police, to remember our years together. No reply came as the night dragged on. At Sophia's, she saw my tear-streaked face and hugged me tight. "We'll figure this out," she promised as I sobbed in her arms. That night, on Sophia's guest bed, staring at the ceiling, my world felt shattered. The home I'd built, the man I loved, the life I'd created, gone because of a teen's lies and a husband who believed the worst of me without hesitation. The next morning, Mark's parents arrived to support their traumatized son and grandson. Jake's plan worked perfectly, casting me as the villain while he turned everyone against me. They didn't know that by pushing me out, they'd freed me from his web of lies. In the weeks ahead, that freedom would fuel my strength to fight back in ways they couldn't imagine. I barely slept at Sophia's that first night, torn between tears, rage, and disbelief. By morning, something shifted. The shock was fading, replaced by a growing resolve that would only strengthen. "You need a lawyer," Sophia said over coffee, watching me check my phone for Mark's non-existent replies. "This isn't just a mix-up. He kicked you out over a lie." I nodded, the truth sinking in. "You're right. I need to protect myself." That afternoon, Sophia introduced me to her cousin, Patricia Williams, a top divorce attorney. I hesitated at divorce, still hoping Mark would see reason, but Patricia's blunt words shifted my view during our first meeting. "Your husband's shown where his loyalty lies," she said, eyeing me across her sleek desk. "The question isn't saving your marriage, it's how to protect yourself moving forward." With Patricia's help, I started documenting everything. I made a timeline of Jake's worsening behavior, missing items, arguments, and Mark always siding with him. She also urged me to check our finances. "Impulsive men like him often make rash money moves," she warned. She was right. I found Mark had moved $15,000 from our joint savings to his personal account the morning after he kicked me out. The betrayal hurt, but it fueled my determination. Patricia guided me to gather evidence. I contacted our neighbors, the Johnsons, whose security cameras caught Jake's drunk friends leaving that night, showing no chaos like Jake claimed. The video's timestamp proved I wasn't alone with him long enough for his fake assault story. She also helped secure my finances, redirecting my paychecks to a new account and listing all my contributions to our marriage. I'd funded the kitchen renovation with my grandmother's inheritance and kept receipts for every piece of furniture I'd bought for Mark's house. Through social media, we found a gut punch, Jake's post in a private group, screenshot by a friend. Finally got the stepmom out. Dad fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. The cruelty stung, but it was solid proof of his lies. While I rebuilt my life, Mark stayed silent. My calls and texts went unanswered for weeks. The only contact was an email to Patricia, saying I could grab my things Saturday when he and Jake were out. 3 weeks dragged by in this limbo. I kept working, my kind boss giving me flexible hours to meet Patricia and sort my life. Sophia's guest room became my safe haven, her friendship my lifeline. My sister Laurel flew from Portland, her support reminding me I had family who trusted me. With Laurel and Sophia by my side, I went back to the house that Saturday. Walking through the home I'd made beautiful felt unreal. Our wedding photos still hung on the walls. My cookbook sat on the kitchen shelves. My rose bushes bloomed outside. Yet I was an intruder, given 2 hours to grab my things like a thief. Laurel found me on the bed, holding a photo from our Napa Valley anniversary. "This isn't your story's end," she said softly, sitting beside me. "It's just a chapter closing. The next one will be better, you'll be free from those who don't deserve you." Her words hit deep, sparking a new view. Maybe this painful exit wasn't a loss but a chance to rebuild without Jake's lies or Mark's doubts. As the 3-week mark neared, I changed outwardly, too. I cut my hair into a sleek bob, feeling lighter. I joined a kickboxing class, turning pain into strength. I bought clothes that fit the new me, not the wife I'd tried to be for Mark and Jake. I also reconnected with old friends, lost during my marriage. I saw how Mark had quietly isolated me, always finding reasons to avoid my friends or prioritize family time. I reached out, rebuilding my support network beyond Sophia and Laurel. 3 weeks to the day Mark threw me out, my phone rang with his number. I stared, heart pounding, before answering calmly, "Hello." "Emery," Mark said, forcing a casual tone. "We should talk about what happened, our marriage, if you've reflected and are ready to come home." His assumption that I'd begged to return stunned me. My voice stayed steady. Yes, we should talk, I said. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. at Les Maisons. I picked a fancy downtown restaurant, public but private enough for a real talk. Sounds good, Mark said, relieved I agreed so easily. See you then. I called Patricia right after. He thinks I'll apologize and come back, I told her. Perfect, she said, a grin in her voice. He won't expect what's coming. Bring the papers tomorrow. I'll have them ready. That night, I barely slept, rehearsing my words, determined to stay calm facing the man who broke my trust. By morning, I felt a strange peace, sure I was doing the right thing. Laurel helped me pick a sharp navy dress, confident and professional, not romantic. As she zipped me up, she squeezed my shoulders. Remember who you are, she said firmly. Not who he thinks you are, the real you. Her words gave me strength. I grabbed the manila envelope from Patricia's office and headed to Les Maisons, ready to end one chapter and start a new one on my terms. Les Maisons was bustling when I arrived 5 minutes early. I chose it not just for its public vibe but because I loved it, and Mark always called it pretentious. Being there was my first step in reclaiming my own choices after years of compromise. I asked for a quiet corner table where the chatter of other diners gave us privacy but kept things public enough to avoid a scene. The hostess led me to a spot behind a decorative screen, perfect for what I needed. Mark arrived right at 1 p.m., always on time. As he approached, I noticed new lines around his eyes and a slight slump in his shoulders. He looked worn out, and a small part of me felt grim satisfaction seeing his stress. Emery, he said, starting to lean in for a cheek kiss but stopping, awkwardly taking the seat across from me. You look different. Better different, I said coolly, not returning any warmth. How are you holding up? These past weeks have been tough, he said, waving for a waiter. For all of us. We ordered drinks, Mark a scotch, odd for midday, me, sparkling water with lime. When the waiter left, Mark leaned in, serious. I've been thinking, Emery, about what happened, our marriage. Family matters, and we owe it to ourselves to fix this. His words sounded reasonable, but they missed the point. He thought this was just a hiccup we could smooth over with effort. I've been thinking too, I said, sipping my water. About trust and loyalty. About what holds a marriage together. Mark nodded eagerly. Exactly. Having a teenager is tough. It takes patience from everyone. No, Mark, I said firmly. It takes trust. And you showed me how little you trust me when you believed Jake's lies without a second thought. His face darkened. Emery, I saw the bruise myself. What was I supposed to think? You should have thought your wife of 7 years, who's never been violent, might be telling the truth, I said, keeping my voice steady despite my anger. You should have considered your son, who's been hostile to me for months, might be lying. That's a big accusation, Mark said, repeating his old line. And I was your wife, I shot back, stressing the past tense. Was? Mark's eyes widened at my words. Are you saying? I pulled the manila envelope from my purse, Patricia's divorce papers, and set it between us. I'm filing for divorce. Mark stared at the envelope, stunned, then gave a weak laugh. You're not serious. This is overreacting to a mix-up. A mix-up? I said, incredulous. You kicked me out over a lie, ignored me for 3 weeks, and moved money from our joint account without a word. That's not a mix-up, Mark. That's a betrayal. His phone buzzed, Jake's name on the screen. He ignored it, focusing on me, worry growing. I overreacted that night, I admit. But seeing Jake so upset. Look at this, I cut in, pulling out my phone to show the evidence folder. Security footage from the Johnsons' cameras. Jake's friends left at 6:15. I called Sophia at 6:23. 8 minutes for me to supposedly attack Jake and him to call you crying? I handed him the phone. He watched, frowning. This doesn't prove anything, he said, but his voice wavered. And this? I showed Jake's social media post, bragging about getting me out. Does this look like a victim or someone who planned it all? Mark paled, reading it. It could be out of context, he mumbled weakly. And this? I added statements from 2 of Jake's friends, saying I only asked them to leave, no violence. Patricia had gotten their honest accounts. Mark's phone buzzed again, Jake calling repeatedly. He silenced it, looking shaken as the evidence piled up. Why show me this? He asked. So you know what you threw away, I said calmly. This divorce isn't a rash move, it's a decision based on your actions and Jake's lies. Mark's confidence faded, replaced by desperation. Emery, we can fix this. Therapy, counseling, anything. Now that I see this evidence. Now? I cut him off. Why not 3 weeks ago, Mark? Why didn't you look for proof then, when it mattered? Why assume the worst of me? He had no answer. The papers list my terms, I said, pushing the envelope closer. I've tracked every penny I put into our home, every upgrade, every piece of furniture. Patricia calculated a fair split for the years I made your house ours. Mark stared at the envelope, unmoving. You've already got a lawyer? I had one the day after you kicked me out, I said. Unlike you, I don't make life-changing choices on impulse. His phone buzzed again, and Mark glanced at it, irritated. Jake keeps calling. He only does this when it's urgent. Maybe he feels his plan slipping, I said. Maybe he knows I'm showing you the truth. Mark hesitated, then answered. Jake, I'm busy with something important, he said. I heard Jake's frantic voice from across the table. Mark's face shifted from annoyed to worried. Calm down. What evidence? What post? He looked at me, realization hitting. I'll be home soon. Don't do anything. We'll talk. He hung up, staring at me. He knows about the evidence, doesn't he? I nodded. One of his friends likely told him they talked to my lawyer. Truth finds a way out. Mark looked drained, the weight of it all hitting him. I messed up, he said softly. You did, I agreed, not harshly. And now we both face the fallout. He reached for my hand, but I pulled back. Emery, give me a chance. Give us a chance, now that I know the truth. It's not just that night, I said, calm despite the heavy moment. It's months of you picking Jake over me, ignoring my worries, letting him tear me down in our home. That night was just the final straw. His phone buzzed with a text. Mark glanced at it, his jaw tightening. Jake says you're lying, that you faked evidence to frame him. Of course he does, I said with a sad smile. 3 weeks ago, you'd have believed him instantly. Do you now? The question lingered, a test Mark finally seemed to grasp. After a pause, he shook his head. No, he said quietly. I don't. Then maybe you're starting to see what I've been saying all along. Mark looked shattered, realizing what he'd lost. What's next? He asked. You take these papers to your lawyer, I said, nudging the envelope closer. Fight me, and it'll be painful for us both. Or accept my fair terms, and we can move on. Mark took the envelope, hands shaky. And us? Any chance at all? No, Mark, I said firmly but gently. That ended when you told me to leave our home. Some things can't be undone. His phone buzzed again, Jake's texts growing desperate. Mark silenced it, regret in his eyes. I need to handle this, deal with him. I've ignored too much. I nodded. Good luck. Jake needs real help, not enabling. As Mark stood, he paused, looking at me. You seem stronger. I am, I said. Having your life torn apart can clear things up. I know my worth now. After he left, I stayed, ordering lunch and wine, quietly celebrating taking back my life. The talk went as Patricia and I planned, maybe better. I stayed composed, showed my evidence, and held my ground without breaking. Sipping my wine, I wondered about the chaos at Mark's house, picturing Jake's anger as his lies unraveled. I felt no glee, just a faint sadness for what might have been if Jake had accepted me and Mark had been the partner I needed. But that sadness was drowned out by freedom. For the first time in years, I made choices just for me, not worrying about a husband who didn't value me or a stepson who schemed against me. It was scary but thrilling, a blank slate for a life I'd design. By the time I finished eating, Mark had called 3 times, leaving urgent voicemails I ignored for now. His family's drama wasn't my burden anymore. That alone deserved a second glass of wine and the chocolate dessert I loved, which Mark always called too indulgent. Sometimes, I thought, savoring each bite, one story's end is just the start of a better one. 6 months later, I stood at my new apartment's window, watching the sunset paint the city in pink and gold. I barely recognized the woman I was when Mark threw me out. My new place was smaller but all mine, decorated to my taste, no compromises. Bold art Mark hated hung in the living room. The kitchen had the fancy appliances he'd called excessive. Every corner screamed me, my choices, my life reclaimed. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago, smoother than expected. Mark agreed to most terms without a fight. Patricia was surprised but pleased, suspecting his guilt drove his compliance. "He knows he screwed up," she said at our last meeting. "Fighting you would only make him look worse." The settlement was fair, letting me buy my apartment with savings left for security. I got half the value of home improvements I'd funded, compensation for furniture I left, and a share of our joint investments based on my contributions. No money could erase the betrayal's sting, the shame of being kicked out, the shock that 7 years of marriage meant so little. Healing that wound was slower, a journey inward, unlike the quick legal process. Mark called often after Les Mason, his voicemails shifting from desperate pleas to grim admissions of his failures. I listened but didn't reply, needing space to sort my emotions without his voice in my head. Friends told me what happened when Mark got home that day. Jake, seeing his lies exposed, raged and accidentally confessed plotting my exit. It forced Mark to face his years of enabling Jake's manipulations and lack of boundaries. Their home saw heated arguments, then a tense silence between them. Jake's behavior worsened after I left. His grades tanked, he got caught drinking at school, and was suspended for online bullying. The perfect sun mask he wore for Mark fell apart, revealing a troubled teen. My promotion to senior marketing director came from a fire I rediscovered at work. During my marriage, I'd held back, softening my ambitions to avoid outshining Mark. I hadn't even noticed that compromise until it vanished. Now, free from those invisible chains, I poured myself into my career, and it paid off. Laurel saw me blossoming and decided to move closer. She took a nursing job at a hospital just 10 minutes from my apartment. After years of feeling cut off from family, having her nearby was a warmth I didn't know I'd been missing. Sophia remained my anchor, the friend who'd seen me shattered and then soaring. We started a Sunday brunch ritual, trading stories and lifting each other up. Through her, I met new people who knew me as Emery, not Mark's wife or Jake's stepmom. They embraced the woman I was becoming. Therapy with Dr. Elaine Carter was my lifeline. She helped me uncover how I'd lost pieces of myself in my marriage, always bending to keep peace, chasing a role that was never truly valued. Our weekly talks rebuilt my trust in my own reality, piece by piece. Gaslighting leaves deep wounds, Dr. Carter said during a pivotal session. When someone constantly makes you question your truth, it erodes your core. Healing takes time and deliberate work. I tackled that work every day. I challenged dark thoughts, practiced kindness toward myself, and celebrated small victories in reclaiming my identity. The woman who'd been undermined and cast aside faded. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and unwilling to settle for less. For months after the divorce, I ran into Mark at a downtown coffee shop. The moment was awkward but lacked the emotional punch I'd feared. He looked worn, older, a shadow of the confident man who'd once been my everything. "Emery," he said, startled. "You look incredible." "Thanks," I replied, my heart calm, no twist in my gut. "How are you holding up?" "Managing," he said with a tired smile. "Jake's in therapy now." It was long overdue. I nodded, unsurprised. "That's good for you both." "It took some rough moments to get there," Mark admitted, a new humility in his voice. "Issues I should have faced years ago." We spoke briefly, civil despite our past. As we parted, he paused, then spoke with raw honesty. "I made the worst mistake of my life that night," he said softly. "Sorry can't undo it, but I'm truly sorry. I should have trusted you. I should have seen the truth." His apology meant something, but it didn't change my path. "Thanks, Mark. I hope you and Jake find peace." "Are you happy?" he asked, his tone curious, not prying. "I am," I answered truthfully. Not just despite what happened, but because of it. I found myself again. Walking away, I felt a quiet closure. His words weren't necessary for my healing, but they marked the end of our story. That chapter was closed, freeing me to write a new one. That new chapter included Daniel, a former client from my marketing firm. He'd admired my work and asked me to coffee after our project wrapped. Our connection grew slowly, both of us cautious, shaped by past lessons, determined to build something honest and healthy. One evening, as we walked along the riverfront, Daniel said, "Your resilience is what I admire most. You took a crushing betrayal and made it fuel for growth. That's true strength." His words sank deep, reflecting my journey in a way few could understand. He saw me as a survivor who'd reclaimed her life, not a victim, a mirror of how I now viewed myself. Word reached me through friends that Jake, after his suspension and other troubles, finally leaned into therapy. His perfect son facade had shattered, forcing him to confront old wounds from his parents' divorce. Strangely, our family's collapse might have been the push he needed to seek help. I took no joy in Jake's struggles. Instead, I held a faint hope he'd grow beyond the person who'd schemed to erase me. Forgiveness was a slow process, one I pursued for my own peace, not his. I had no desire to reconnect, but I was gradually releasing the anger that once consumed me. 6 months after leaving Mark's house with just a suitcase, I hosted a housewarming party in my new apartment. Laurel, Sophia, colleagues turned friends, and new faces filled my space. Their laughter and warmth brought a joy I hadn't felt in years. To fresh starts, Laurel toasted, raising her glass in my living room, and to my unstoppable sister, who rose from the ashes. As glasses clinked and voices swirled, I reflected on my journey. The betrayal I thought would destroy me had sparked a more authentic life. Losing what I thought I needed gave me what I truly deserved: self-respect, genuine connections, and the freedom to be myself without apology. Life rarely follows the map we draw. Sometimes, the sharpest turns lead to the brightest places. I learned trust must be earned, not given freely. Family is built on loyalty and love, not just legal bonds. Most importantly, my worth never hinged on others seeing it. As the party wound down, Daniel stayed, helping me gather glasses and shift furniture. The ease of the moment stood in stark contrast to the tension of my final days with Mark. "Thanks for sharing my new beginning," he said, pulling me into a gentle hug. In his embrace, the last fragments of my healing clicked into place. I hadn't just survived betrayal, I'd transformed. The woman ousted over lies was now stronger, wiser, and more authentic than she ever could have been had she stayed. That night, as I tidied up alone, I paused by the window, watching the city lights flicker. My apartment, though smaller than Mark's house, was a sanctuary of my own making. Every piece of furniture, every splash of color, reflected my choices, no compromises. The bold abstract art on the walls was a quiet rebellion against Mark's old complaints. The kitchen gleamed with appliances I'd always wanted but he'd deemed excessive. I thought back to the woman who'd walked into that house years ago, eager to build a family. I'd poured love into every corner, believing effort would win Jake over and solidify my place with Mark. But love alone couldn't bridge a gap widened by manipulation and misplaced trust. Rebuilding wasn't easy. There were nights I lay awake, replaying Jake's smirk or Mark's cold words, wondering if I could have done something differently. Dr. Carter taught me those thoughts were normal but not the truth. I hadn't failed, they had. My job was to keep moving forward, not to rewrite the past. My career became a cornerstone of that forward motion. The promotion wasn't just a title, it was proof I could reclaim my ambition. I led campaigns with a confidence I'd buried during my marriage, pitching ideas I'd once shelved to keep Mark comfortable. My team respected me, and clients sought my input. Work became a place where I shone without apology. Laurel's move brought a new rhythm to my life. We'd meet for coffee or dinner, laughing over old memories or planning new ones. Her presence grounded me, a reminder that family wasn't just the one I'd tried to build with Mark and Jake. It was the people who showed up, no questions asked. Sophia's friendship anchored me through every storm. Our Sunday brunches were sacred, a time to share triumphs and fears. She introduced me to a wider circle, artists, writers, professionals, who welcomed me for my humor, my ideas, my strength. They didn't know the old Emery, only the one standing tall now. Therapy remained my compass. Dr. Carter helped me untangle the ways I'd diminished myself, not just for Mark but in smaller ways throughout my life. She gave me tools to rebuild trust in my instincts, to spot red flags, to value my voice. Each session peeled back another layer of doubt, revealing the woman I was always meant to be. The coffee shop meeting with Mark lingered in my mind, not because I longed for him, but because it showed how far I'd come. His apology was sincere, but it belonged to his healing, not mine. I'd already found my closure in the choices I'd made since the apartment, the promotion, the new relationships. Daniel's role in my life grew steadily. We took things slow, meeting for coffee, then dinners, then long walks where we shared our stories. He'd been through his own heartbreak, a divorce that taught him the value of honesty and respect. Our conversations were easy, our silences comfortable. He celebrated my wins without feeling threatened, a stark contrast to the compromises I'd made before. Jake's path was murkier. Friends said his therapy was starting to take hold, but it was a rocky road. His actions had consequences, lost friendships, a tarnished reputation at school. I didn't wish him ill, but I felt no obligation to fix him. That was Mark's job, and maybe, finally, he was stepping up to it. The housewarming party was a turning point. My apartment buzzed with life, laughter, stories, the clink of glasses. Laurel's toast brought tears to my eyes, not from pain but from gratitude. These people saw me, valued me, chose me. I wasn't an outsider here, tiptoeing around someone else's rules. As I stood in my kitchen later, washing dishes with Daniel, I felt a quiet triumph. This life, messy, vibrant, mine, was built from the rubble of betrayal. I'd turned pain into power, loss into liberation. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, I hope my story lights a spark. The end of one chapter isn't the end of you, it's the start of something new, and you get to write it. Have you rebuilt after betrayal? Drop your story below. If my journey resonated, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear there's hope after hurt. Thank you for listening to my story. Never forget, your worth isn't defined by how others treat you, but by how you rise and reclaim your life.